Welcome to Nwokea Podcast. My name is Violet Nwokeafore Wade. Today's podcast is going to be about positive mindset. So since I don't have a guest, I'll just talk about positive mindset as a conversation with myself. So I remember as a young person, when I was younger, and I remember people would tell me that I wasn't smiling, that I was always frowning. And I think I have a good idea why I was always frowning. Because as a young person, when I was about 11 months, when I was crawling, I had a tragic accident that happened to me. As I was told, it was during Harmattan season. I crawled away from my parents, my family, and went to the what we'll call living room where the fireplace was. And during Harmattan season in Nigeria, it's very cold and dry. So they were burning the fireplace, and unfortunately, they do not have a protective guard to cover the fireplace so that children, special children crawling, do not go to the fire. But apparently, I was attracted to the fire, as I was told, and I went to the fire and put my 2 hands into the fire. I was told that I did not cry, so I think it could be the shock of it, and the universe has a way of protecting you from losing your mind when such a tragic, shocking thing happens to you. So it kind of protects you. So I did not cry until they started smelling something was burning. And somebody came to the living room and found me with my 2 hands still in the fire. And I think some of my legs were also there, but mostly my 2 hands. So they rushed me to the hospital. And by the time the doctors took care of the burning, they have already lost almost 2 fingers. But they tied the fire burn closed. They closed it and tied it. And apparently they did not know a better way to handle fire burn. So as I got older and going to school, I think that's when I noticed that I was different. Because even though children are very wonderful people, they can be cruel sometimes. And I don't think they mean to be cruel. They just like to say what's in their mind. So I remember a lot of kids will laugh at me, will tease me, and they will call me all sorts of names. So I think that's when I started not laughing a lot. I started frowning. And I started getting ready to fight. When anybody will laugh at me, I was ready to fight. So after a while, I started recognizing, okay, I'm different. Something happened to me. And I have a great dad and mom. But my dad was such an incredible human. I remember coming home one day and telling Dad that the kids at school were laughing at me because of my fingers. And my dad told me, you should have seen my dad. Very handsome, tall man. He was sitting on his favorite chair and he told me to come here. And he carried me on his lap and he said, look at me. And I looked at him and he said, do you think your father will have a child that answers to the name that those kids are calling her? And I said, no, Dad. And he said, look up. And I look up and he said, what do you see up there? And I said, well, I see the ceiling, Dad. No, he said, look beyond the ceiling. I said, okay, if I look beyond the ceiling, it will be a sky, right? And my dad said, do you think your heavenly father will have a child or a daughter that will answer to those silly names? And I said, no, Papa. And he said to me, you know, my daughter, he called me my special name that he calls me, which is Nwokeafore. He said, Nwokeafore, what happened to you is an accident. You weren't born this way. And even if you were, so what? But you weren't. You had an accident. So he told me the story of the accident. And he said, but you are the most beautiful girl I've ever known. You're beautiful inside and out. And I know one day you're going to have a surgery that will straighten your fingers and allow you to do anything you want to do. Don't ever let it stop you from achieving whatever goal you set for yourself. And I said, okay, Dad. But for a child, it wasn't easy. So for my dad to tell me that at that time it was soothing, but I had no idea how those words that my dad told me will come to be my anchor, will come to give me such a positive mindset towards everything in life. So after my dad, told me this, and I cried a little bit, and he held me, and I said, thank you, Papa, and I went about my business. Well, I didn't have my dad for too long. I lost my dad when I was very young. Then less than a year after I lost my dad, I came to America. But I remember coming when I got to America, and things were happening as a young person in America. I missed my dad so much, but I was so glad that I was in America. So when things were not going the way, I thought everybody was like my dad. Positive, very nice human, but a lot of people weren't like that. So I find myself falling back to the words that my dad told me. And those words etched in my brain. And so no matter what people would tell me, I will always respond that when my dad said, I can be anything I want to be. I can do anything I want to do. And how dare you tell me I can't do this or do that when my dad said I could? So I continued that way. And I remember I have this one story when I was at University of Houston and I wanted to study chemical engineering. And I had an advisor who was also the same guy that was teaching this prerequisite class that we must pass before we can take engineering classes. Somehow this guy refused. Anything I turned in, he was flunking me. He was failing me. My roommate, who was also my classmate, we'll do the homework together. I'll contribute, she will contribute. We pretty much turned in the same homework. She will make an A, and maybe I'll get a D, and sometimes F. I couldn't figure out what was going on. In my little mind, I had no idea that racism comes in that form. All I thought was, this guy is my cheerleader. He's my advisor. He's supposed to advise me and help me so that I can achieve my dream. But this man called me into his office one day, and he asked me this question. So why are you here? He said. And I said, what do you mean why I'm here? I'm here because I took tests like everybody else, and I passed. And I wanted to study engineering, and here I am. He goes, no, who gave you the idea that you should be here? Again, I'm not familiar with racism and the different ways they come. And I said, well, my father said I can do anything I want to, So I figured I want to do chemical engineering and I passed the classes. That's what I'm going to do. Oh, he was not happy. And he goes, well, your dad is wrong. You don't belong here. And I go, what? How can my dad be wrong? Needless to say, he never passed me and never made it into engineering school. But boy, am I glad that I was able to change my major and studied mathematics and made it into mathematics, because with math, I was open to pursue my career, my dream, any which way. I was not constrained into just being a chemical engineer and working only for chemical engineering companies. I was able to, with mathematics, to go anywhere I wanted. I was free and I was making my own choices. So my positive mind started with my dad, and it allowed me to be able to overcome a lot of racism, a lot of injustice, a lot of roadblocks, a lot of things that was thrown my way. What I would suggest, if anybody in your life have ever told you anything positive, take it and run with it. It's easy for us to only remember the bad things people have told us and let it stop us on our track. If you can find a way to have a positive mindset, it doesn't mean you're not going to meet obstacles and other stuff, but you are going to use your mindset to say, no, you're not going to stop me. To say, no, I will defy and I will define what my purpose is, and I'm going to pursue it. No other human being has a right, no other human being has the power to stop me. I have the same power as anybody else. And if other people are doing it, I can do it. But remember, don't compete yourself with anybody else. Always go with what you feel, what you want to do, and do your best. Don't ever stop. The only time that you lose is when you stop. Always keep going. Always going after your dream. Always keep having positive mindset. So, I want to give a shout out to those working behind the cameras. I want to give a shout out to my creative director, Faye Wade, and to my camera assistant, Peace Wade. So remember, be good to yourself and to others. See you at my next podcast.